What's up, guys? Braulio Estima here. Welcome to the GB online chat show. Today we have an amazing guest. We're going to be talking to Professor Kendall Reusing, that is born and raised in our blue mats in the Gracie Barra. So many stories. One of the most accomplished fighters in America, and so many stories. And she's one of the most active females fighting at the moment, the present time, big champion, like Professor Kendall. Professor Kendall, how are you? Welcome to our chat show.
I think, hold on. Okay, I'm back. I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. It's a pleasure. And I know it's late at night for you, right? Or no?
It's at 8 o'clock, 8
Okay,
p.m.
cool.
It's
Nice.
going
So
to
it's
be early for you.
yeah, I feel like I know the time zones way better than I ever used to know because now I'm like figuring out where everybody is all the time. So it's been cool.
It's cool. Been traveling a lot, isn't it? Like I remember I think it was when you came here to visit my academy. How long ago was that? It was like 2, 3 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, I was a purple belt and it was 2017.
Yeah,
I
that's it.
Yeah, it was 2017. Yeah, so like 2.5 years.
And then you were doing like a trip in Europe, wasn't it? It was how did you find Europe? Was it the first time in this side here of the world?
Yeah, well, I had been to Europe a little bit for wrestling because I competed with Team USA. So I went to like Slovakia and I went to Spain. But I never spent a lot of time. And as you know, when you're traveling to compete, like you don't really like do a lot of sightseeing. You just kind of compete and leave. So it was my first time spending a lot of time in Europe, and I got to train a lot with Professor Lagarto. I spent a lot of time there, and then I came up to see you guys, and it was awesome. I loved it.
That's pretty cool. And kind of like you kind of you started in wrestling, right? That was your first that you initiate your like fighting training was in wrestling first. Like what? How long? What age were you when you started?
So I started jujitsu when I was 5, and then I kept training jujitsu until I was like 12. And then when I went into wrestling, I was 13, so it was high school. So I went into wrestling in high school at 13. I did wrestling from about 13 to like 18, and then I came back to jiu-jitsu, and I'm 22 now. So I've been doing jiu-jitsu again for like a little over 3 years. So when I went up to see you, I had just really gotten serious about jiu-jitsu again. Yeah, but I've been on the mats forever, just kind of back and forth. I did judo, and I started judo when I was 7 also. So I
Mhm.
started with jiu-jitsu.
Did you ever compete when you were like young in jiu-jitsu, or was mainly just?
Yeah. Yeah, so when I was 5, I started. So my dad moved from like my parents moved from Atlanta, Georgia, to the West Coast to train jiu-jitsu because at the time, like back in the 90s, there wasn't really much jiu-jitsu anywhere. It was still coming to the United States, and we started training in Southern California. And then my dad started me when I was 5, and then I started competing as much as I could. But as you know, like there weren't that many competitions back then, especially for kids, and then especially for girls. So there weren't really many girls doing it. So I started competing when I was 5, and then I joined judo when I was 7 so that I could compete more because they had a little more tournaments going on. They were a little more organized. But I started competing then, and I won like the kids worlds or the kids Pan Ams and whatever tournaments they had going on. I just did everything that I could. So I competed as much as I could.
That's pretty cool. And because your dad was a very respected fighter in our sport, and how was the like the relationship? Did you feel any pressure like for your dad being who he is and being training under him? Did you feel any pressure, or you felt actually motivated to kind of follow up and the legacy?
Yeah, I think it was both. When things really changed when he became a school owner, because before that, it was just kind of like it was nice to have him as one of the instructors because it was just like a really comfortable situation for me to have him around all the time. But when he opened a school, I think there was more pressure when I started getting to like 11 and 12, and then of course when I was like a teenager, because people expect you to be a very specific like a version of jujitsu when you're like the professor's kid. So I think there was some pressure, but it really just motivated me too because like one thing I always tell people about my parents is they never like forced me to do anything. So people ask like, oh, did you fight with your dad about it? And it was really just like, they let me do whatever I want. So if I wanted to compete, I competed. If I wanted to do wrestling, I did wrestling. If I wanted to do gymnastics, I did gymnastics. And I think because of that, it really just gave me the freedom to make my own choices that I ended up coming back to it on my own. And now I teach and own schools and compete full time. So I think they just really gave me the freedom to do what I needed, and I was allowed to be, and so I was motivated to do what I wanted to do because it came from like a very genuine place rather than doing it to impress them.
And like, what was the decision to merge into wrestling, or something to complement jiu-jitsu, or just to do something different for high school? Because in high school, you guys, there's no jiu-jitsu schools in UK yet. Oh, sorry, in America yet. So is it the college there was more for that kind of scholarship that you try to do, or something to complete yourself as a martial arts?
Yeah, it was both. I mean, like one of the main things is that like in America, you have to do a PE in school. Like you have to do a physical activity. And I thought PE was dumb because they just like made you do like jumping jacks and stuff. So I was like, man, if I can wrestle and be on the wrestling team, then the takedowns are going to be great for my jiu-jitsu. So I really did it like initially to complement my jiu-jitsu. But the more I got into wrestling, I really fell in love with it. And then also, of course, you know, my whole thing, like my dad asked me to like write down my goals when I was young. And at 5 years old, my goal was to be an Olympic jiu-jitsu champion, just because I assumed that like jiu-jitsu was going to be in the Olympics already. And obviously when I got into high school, that wasn't the case. And wrestling was. So I fell in love with wrestling. And then I had this like Olympic dream that I could pursue along with, you know, college scholarships and stuff like that. So I fell in love with it, but it also turned into this big thing where I was like, wow, like I can be in the Olympics. And that was really everything that was behind it. Is like, that's like the pinnacle of sports. I want to be in that. I want to be on Team USA. I want to represent my country. And so I really fell in love with wrestling. And then it kind of like took me away from jiu-jitsu. And then I was really serious about wrestling. I was training at the Olympic Training Center, and I wrestled internationally. I went to college for wrestling as well. But when I came back from a year in college, I came back to California because I was going to school in Canada. I came back to California and I decided to stop wrestling for a lot of reasons. One of the main was just because I was like cutting weight, like 20 pounds, 25 pounds every week or so. And it was just wreaking so much havoc on my body, and I was really miserable. And I knew that if I did jiu-jitsu, I could compete in the open weight and just kind of enjoy my life. And so I ended up stopping wrestling so that I could get healthy. And then I fell back into love with jiu-jitsu again. But jiu-jitsu, like a lot of people say jiu-jitsu saved my life. And I think that's amazing in a lot of ways. For me, how that really affected me was like, I don't think that I could have left wrestling if I didn't have jiu-jitsu to go back into, because I had so much energy and so much drive, but I knew that wrestling was making me unhealthy, that I didn't have, like, I needed something else to put my energy into. And so, of course, you know, my parents owning the schools, and I had a lot of amazing Gracie Ball leaders around me that were like, hey, come try it, just train again. Let's see how it goes. And immediately getting back on the mats was like falling in love, head over heels all over again. And that was kind of history. And so I was able to put all my energy there and get really healthy and have some new goals around it. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Guys, listen, I just want to open up here for everyone who is interested to send any comments or any questions. Please just type on the chat underneath, and then we're going to be putting here on the screen so you guys can be very much interacting live, like Celito Antonio Scorsese is doing that right now. So, guys, just a quick one. When did you start actually helping your dad teaching classes? Did you start very early? When did you start?
So when we were at Professor Ricardo's, there was a Gracie Bod Temecula. When we were there, he started teaching full time, and I was really young, so I was kind of like assisting with the kids a little bit, but I was still really just training because I was really young. That was like age like 5 to 10. And so then when they opened the school, like I was like 11, around 10 and 11, then I really started like helping out with kids classes because we were a brand new school. So everybody who came in was new. So I would help out and kind of train with the new students. And then I came in and out a little bit, like doing self-defense seminars and stuff, like as a teenager, but I didn't go back to teaching full time, or I didn't start teaching full time until I came back from wrestling. So I was like 18, 19. So I've been teaching full time again for the last, 3 or 4 years. And then in the last like year and a half, I really became like a complete full-time instructor. Really in the last year, because we have multiple schools. So I was helping at one school, and then I completely became the head instructor of Gracie Ball Riverside. So I teach full time now, like the kids, the adults, everything. And so now I'm a full time instructor for almost a year now. I've been doing that. So it's kind of been gradual over the years, but now I teach full time.
And that's pretty cool. Did you notice, like, when you start teaching more often, did you feel that technically you kind of evolve a little bit faster than before, or you didn't notice any difference?
Yeah, I definitely did. I think that one thing, like with instructors and competitors, is that when you think about, and this because you've been a full-time competitor, that sometimes it feels like a burden to be a full-time instructor at the same time, because you don't really have time to recover from your training sessions. Your mind is constantly working really hard. You're learning the curriculums all the time. It's like hard to really focus on competing. And I think at first I thought it was going to be really hard to do both. And it is hard. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, as I teach full time. I operate and run the businesses full time too in the background, and I compete full time. So, so I really thought it would be really hard, and it is. But what I didn't realize is that it was actually going to be way better for my jiu-jitsu. So even though I miss out on like recovery and stuff sometimes, I think my jiu-jitsu is so much better and so much more technical because of the focus that I have to put into teaching, and how clearly I have to learn the techniques, and how clearly I have to be able to articulate them, not only to adults, but to kids as well. So, and then you're doing that 5 or 6 hours in a row. And then when I go to train and I'm using the techniques in my own sparring, I understand them, so much more deeply than I did if I just learned them and then try to train with them. So yeah, I definitely think so, but it is hard.
Yeah, it's not easy. But one thing that I used to think as well, Kendall, when I used to, the same kind of my phase was very similar to you as well. Back in the day, I was like I was working, I was teaching, and always very on the go, and also competing at the same time. But I think one thing that actually it was some of the scenario that helped me to keep up my willpower, because when you constantly on the go, your body kind of react a little bit more on the hardship, instead of just like train, rest, do nothing, train.
Right.
I think my body was responding much better when I was busy than when I wasn't busy at all. I remember one of my tournaments that my very first, as a blue belt, that I won my first fight in the IBJJF was the Pan Am in '99, and I managed to win for the first time the whole tournament after 2 years trying. Four tournaments, I lost the very first round. But that competition was very remarkable for me, because it was really hard for me to get the visa, to get everything together, to manage to go to America for the first time. I was 18, never spoke English, never left the country, and I lived by myself. And then the visa was denied, and I have to go up and down the same week of the tournament, because I arrived on Friday. The competition was on Saturday, so I wasn't even knew if I was going to fly. But man, that week, usually I used to have that week off of the tournament. That was my strategy back then. Like, I'll just focus on the tournament. And that week, it was one of the most busiest week that I ever had. I didn't drive, so I had to go bus here, get bags up and down, walking like for half an hour every day. And I managed to get my visa literally 1.5 hours before my flight to depart. And I managed to get down. I remember I was full of sweat, like I was actually working out, but with the bags just coming up from the embassy. And man, when I got there, I thought I got there very, very close by the tournament, and we used to weigh in before. And then the next day, I was sharp as never, because my body was completely focused on where I think sometimes if we tend to think, just train, eat, and sleep is good. But I think you need to get yourself a little bit more drive to keep yourself more on the go. I think keeps your body more rigid. That's how I felt,
Yeah, I think so too. Like, honestly, like this time has been like I've I've been thinking about tournaments so much lately, and trying to. I've been working with a sports psychologist and working on how to recreate your best tournament days, right? So we focus a lot on like the week leading up to the tournament, and doing that work, I would be thinking back to like the best performances that I ever had, and thinking, okay, what did that week look like? And I think most of the time, like my competitions that I've done the best in have almost been like the most stressful weeks that I've had, like the stressful experiences that I've had, like in, very similar, obviously not the same with the visa, but, different things going wrong. For example, like with Nogi Worlds, like 2019. So last December, I had a great tournament. It was my first world championships as a black belt, and I was able to get double gold with Professor Jessica, and I had a great tournament that week. Like I had just got back from like a vacation, and then I came back and like had to like cover a bunch of classes for people. Then I got the flu that week, which I don't suggest, but it worked out for me. I got like a horrible flu. Like I passed out on my feet. Like literally the like 2 days or 3 days before the Nogi Worlds, I was like on my feet, and I had the flu. So I was like going to the bathroom, and I was throwing up, and I was really sick. And on my way to the bathroom, I passed out in the bathroom, like on my face on the floor. The Professor Salo found me and like almost called the hospital. Like it was so bad that week. Like I was so crazy, but I ended up having one of the best tournaments of my life. So I totally think that you're right. Like I think it causes this hyper focus that like there's no time to think about outside distractions. There's no time to be, just kind of like laying down and relaxing. Like you're so sharp, you're so on the go, that for me, like that's how I've made my best performances, which is not what you would think, because you think your body wants to be rested and you just want to be thinking about jiu-jitsu only. But I'm the same way. Like I've had the best performances in some of like my worst, preparation weeks. So I'm the same way.
Yeah. It's funny because I think it's very common within athletes. They have the best competitions that they do is they went through some hardship to get there, because it shows the willpower, how much you really wanted, right? So you're talking about like the preparation for competitions. One thing that I also noticed for me, I'd like to see what you think about that. I realized I figured out, okay, competition is nothing more than a tough training with everyone watching, right? It's not going to be much difference. And every time, like I used to compete, I used to take some days off, like 2 days off, and like sit out and go straight away to the competition. And I was feeling that my first round was very tiring for me, because I used to, with the adrenaline, I haven't trained for 2 days already when I was like blasting on the preparation, and suddenly I don't train at all, and then my body starts like kind of relax a little bit, but really want to train, but got a little bit more relaxed, right? And I remember that my performance wasn't as good as in training, and then I start thinking about, hold on a second, when do I train best during my weeks preparation?
Right.
For me, my personal best training days are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. This is my personal. Everyone is different, but it's just like a little tip for whoever's out there that like to think about competition. And then, so that means that if I train Monday to Saturday, and the Saturday train just one day, and I rest Sunday, no train at all. Saturday, almost nothing. So Sunday at all, 0. And then on Monday, right, I didn't feel as good as on Tuesday because I was completely too relaxed, and I was just getting my hype up. But on Tuesday, I was already a little sore from Monday training. But then I trained better on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. On Thursday, I was already tired from the whole week.
Already going downhill.
But and then with that mindset, I start like, hold on a second. How about if I make my competition day becoming my Tuesday? Right. So what that means that instead of training whole the preparation, and if I'm going to compete till Saturday, I train up. If I used to train until Wednesday and do nothing Thursday and Friday, compete on Saturday, I changed. I start not doing nothing on Wednesday and nothing on Thursday, but then on Friday I train hard and always before the competition. But then I replicate the feeling that I had on Tuesday, even though I was sore, but at least also my performance went like skyrocketing. I felt much better. My body, even though my body was kind of sore, but my body was ready. It was rigid and then ready for fight. You know, what's your plans for competition? How do you prepare yourself the week before?
Yeah, man, I totally agree, and I think I've done something similar. And I've been competing since I was 5, so I've had 17 years to try to figure this out, and it's grown and changed over the years. For me, a huge part of my competition prep is mental. So like I always try to keep like a really really positive mental state of mind. I get really inspired by like Professor Orlando Sanchez is one example. Is like so confident, like no one's ever gonna touch me type of thing. And I kind of try to replicate that too. But one thing that I've found really, really powerful is that, it's not only important to do that on the day of, because it's just like practice. If you don't, like, everyone wants to perform on Saturday, but they don't want to do the hard training on Wednesday, right? So that's something I heard recently from a friend of mine, like just that idea, like everyone wants to perform hard on Saturday, but no one wants to do the hard training on Wednesday. It's the same thing with mental preparation. Like everybody wants to go into the competition like, yeah, I'm the best, I'm going to win, I'm the best fighter, I deserve this, blah, blah, blah. But they don't want to do that mental practice on Wednesday when they're worrying about the tournament, like, oh man, like so-and-so is in my bracket, I hope I don't lose, like that person's going to beat me. It's the same muscle, right? So one thing I've been working on a lot is strengthening that muscle all the time, but especially the week of. So the week of, like, I don't allow any negative thoughts about the competition to even enter my mind. That's one thing that I did with this fight with Gabby Garcia last weekend. And even though I lost, I felt like I had a very, very good mental performance. Like I was really sharp. I was in the match and I felt very good. Like the mental part was not the problem, which it has been before. It wasn't this time. And the week of, anytime I had a negative thought, I immediately squashed it with a positive one and was like, no, I'm going to win, I'm the champion, and all these other things that I've been working on. So a big part of it for me is mental, because I think the mental is the same as training. Like it's a muscle. You have to work it. You can't just automatically expect to feel confident on the day of the tournament. So for me, that's really huge. But as far as the physical preparation goes, normally the week of, I train like say it's on a Saturday, like I train pretty hard on a Monday. I train pretty hard on Tuesday, but I start to bring it down. And then Wednesday, I do like a really light training, like maybe like some drills and stuff, but I don't go too crazy. And then same thing with Thursday. And then Friday, I'm very similar to you. Like Friday, I amp it up a little bit more. I try to do more on Friday because I don't really mind if I go into the tournament sore. But I don't want to go in where my body's like over fatigued. So if I have like 5 days of hard training in a row, like you're saying, you start to go downhill on Thursday, like I know my body's going to start to get fatigued, and that's where like all the lactic acid starts to build up. But after one day of pretty hard training, I feel sharp, I feel awake, and my body feels a little bit sore, but I feel great. So I kind of do the same thing. Like what happened with the Gabby Garcia fight was so funny because Professor Vivi asked me to do the Baja Fit challenge, the 300 challenge on Friday. I couldn't do it because I was flying, so I did it on Thursday. And that thing was so hard. Like I really did not expect it. I did not expect it to be that hard. Like I really, dude, like that thing killed me, kicked my butt. Like that thing was hard. So when I did that, like I was so sore from it on Saturday. Like I really was so sore going into the fight.
When you do a very hard workout,
oh yeah,
you 2 days after, on the next day, the 2 days after the worst, and it was the day of sleeping.
And dude, I was so sore, but it was perfect because I went in and your body, like, that's how I'm used to training. Like you're saying, like the tournament is like a training day, and I'm used to training when I'm sore, and I feel best like in the very beginning of the week, like you're saying. So I felt sore, but I had already been taking it easy in the beginning of the week, like kind of just slowing down. So I didn't have a lot of lactic acid. I wasn't fatigued. I just did like one hard workout, so my body was sharp and everything was, on fire. So that's what I try to replicate when I don't have the flu. And it worked out. It worked out for me this time. One thing, like I think I made a mistake when I went to Europeans. I had just done in January, I did the Queen of the Mat. So the Abu Dhabi Queen of the Mat. And then in Abu Dhabi, and then I flew straight to Lisbon to do the Europeans. And I think the mistake that I made was like, I was training like really, really hard. And then I just stopped completely because I was on the plane and I was traveling. And so then like I had a lack of training going into the tournament. And then also the mental thing, like I had had an okay performance at Queen of the Mats, but I was upset about a few of the losses. And I would let the negative thoughts get to me the whole time leading up to Europeans. And then on the day of Europeans, I would try to like hype myself up and be confident and talk to myself when I had been like letting the negative thoughts win all week. And I just thought it was magically going to happen on the day of the tournament. You know, like it's a constant muscle, like a constant state of mind. So I did okay Europeans. I lost in the Open and I closed out the finals of the weight class with Jessica. But I think I could have done much better in the absolute had I been more sharp mentally and had I been training harder going into the Europeans, or not harder, but just more days closer to the tournament. So.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, just very brand new black belt, and you know, you already like this Saturday, past Saturday, you mentioned fought Gabi Garcia, which is one of the most accomplished women of all times. Like, you know, I don't even know how many times she won a black belt, open weight.
I think like 11-time world champion or something.
And how? So it was the first time that you actually fought her. I know you really want to fight her, and when you felt her, did you feel anything different, or did she surpass your expectations, or how was it when you got into the fight? How did you feel?
Yeah, so like I said, I went in feeling really good mentally. I was really excited about the fight, and I think a lot of people lose to Gabi before the match even starts because they get too afraid, and so you know it's like they already lost before they started, and so you see that a lot. But like I said, that's definitely not, I mean, I felt really good going in. I had trained a lot mentally and I was excited. We had about 2 weeks to prepare for the fight. And I did go train with Professor Orlando. I trained with my guys here and we game planned. Like I weigh about like 180, 185. And they told me she was coming in at like 220. So I kind of game planned and trained with my guys who weigh that much. And I was really working on doing a lot of like breaking collar ties and trying to shuck and go to the back and things like that. And the game plan was great, but she came in, I think around 260. So she was about 80 pounds heavier, which is not like, if that's going to be the situation, that's going to be the situation. That's fine. And I'm prepared for that. But I think I went in underestimating how strong she was going to feel. She felt so powerful. Like anytime she would get a collar tie, man, like her hands are like bigger than my face. Like peeling that hand off your neck is so hard. Like, and as soon as I would try to like peel it off, I was getting shoved off the stage a lot. So I think it was, the fight was frustrating to me because I felt like I had a really strong game plan, but the game plan was the wrong game plan, or it was just not the right version of the game plan because it was for someone who was going to be 40 pounds lighter. So it wasn't going to be that much of a strength difference. Now that I know that there's going to be that much of a strength difference, I'm going to have to recreate a new game plan for that situation. And of course, with the stage, like on a mat where you can kind of go out of bounds a little bit and come back in, my circling and going to the back, I think would have worked a lot better. But for this, since every time we got to the edge, they would stop us and restart us, or I'd fall out and then they'd pick me back up. It kind of ruined my game plan of moving behind her. So I think it was a really good experience. I think we're going to fight a lot more and hopefully in the finals of ADCC. And I'm glad I got to have the experience now because I think I was a little bit naive on how strong she was going to feel. And now I know better, so I can create a better game plan for it. But I felt really good going in. Even after the fight, it didn't feel like, because sometimes you have those losses and it feels like, man, how am I ever going to beat this person? It didn't feel like that. It felt like, oh, okay, now I know better. Even though I got submitted, like in the last minute of the fight, like even though I got submitted, I still feel like, oh no, I could beat her. I just need to adjust some things. So that's a really good feeling, and I'm excited to do it again. So hopefully soon.
Yeah, I think like when you break the like the barrier of the first contact, you realize what really is the situation, because sometimes when you, as you said, most people when fight a very tough opponent, they kind of break down even before start the match, and then also when you look someone fight someone else, by just looking at it, you don't necessarily know exactly how it feels, because it's different, right? Some people can look really good against others and look very bad against somebody else. It's about game plan and tactic, and then that's one of the things that I've always was really good at. Is try to kind of picture what strategy you're gonna be able to apply against a very tough opponent that can take him out of his A game and bring my game plan, you know. So I think the more you fight with someone, if you are smart and you're looking to find the ways out, you become a better fighter. That's how it was for me against Jacare, which was my biggest rival. You know, like I was improving every single fight that I was fighting him. I got submitted, and then by points, less points, and I managed to beat him on the fifth time. And I
Yeah.
think this is what the hardest time thing is. Like you felt, you know how it feels, and you already have in the mind that it's possible. This is the most important thing to have as a fighter, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It was definitely a big part of things, and it's something I'll be working on. Like, I feel like I've focused a lot on it as a kid, and then coming up through the ranks and wrestling, and it was something really strong. But I think when I got my black belt, I lost it a little bit because I started getting really insecure about competing as a black belt. So, you know, I had like a good performance at Nogi Worlds. But then really like my first few black belt big tournaments, like the Grand Slam in LA in the fall, and then in January I had like the Queen of the Mats, which you were at, and then Europeans. Like some of my first big tournaments, it just kind of felt like I wasn't able to recreate that experience. So I had to go back to really like, okay, how did I get really good at this mental thing, and how am I going to build that muscle back up again? Because I think it was really strong, and I relied on it for a long time without continuing to train it. You know, like having a great arm bar and then not training anything else. Like I relied on this great thing that I had, and then I stopped training and I started to lose it. And then I got my black belt. So then I got insecure about competing as a black belt. And then now I've really learned how to build it back up and to really say, oh, don't take that for granted. Like that needs training. Like that just doesn't come like on the day of the tournament. Like it needs training, especially these days when things are so when things are so sophisticated and everyone's doing stuff like that. It has to be very important. So now I feel like I've got that back, and it gives me a lot of confidence moving forward, because I think a lot of these people that I've lost to, or the few people that I've lost to in the last few months, that was the decision maker that I can change moving forward.
Yeah, you always learn from the losses and also from the wins as well. Like for example, when you just got a black belt, you know, the same way for me, I didn't feel like I was a black belt even. It took me about 2 or 3 years for me to feel, you know, okay, now I am a black belt. But even though I won and I went to the finals, I still didn't actually feel quite like. I think it takes time. But this is a good thing because it will make you always search for improvement and auto-critique and get better. But when you went to the Worlds no-gi, right, that you won weight and absolute, did you expect that you were going to do so well, or you was something like, just let's go to see how it feels?
I think like whenever I go compete, I expect the best and I expect to win. It's just a matter of like how much you believe it, you know, and I really believed it this time. It was weird going in because like I said, I was almost in the hospital right before, and I was really sick, and then I had like just come back from a vacation, like you know, all these things. So it was just like, I think the pressure was off because I knew that I knew that people didn't expect me to win anyway, but I expected me to win. So it was a little bit of both. I think like I knew that the pressure was off from other people, but also the pressure was still on me because I expected myself to win. I knew that I could, and I wanted to, and I knew that I could, but it was still unknown because there were so many black belt women that I had never competed against before. Like all my matches at Nogi Worlds were all against previous world champions, like every single one of them, and most of them multiple. Yeah, they're really impressive in the weight and the absolute. It felt a little bit weird closing out the weight and the absolute final because I never had, you know, what's strange is I never had that, like, I won the finals moment, like, oh, I'm the champion, you know, it wasn't really like that, because, you know, Jessica and I closed out both of them, but I did have that moment in a few of my matches that I won at the last second. Like I won in like the last 3 seconds of the fight on my quarterfinals of the absolute by 2 advantages right at the end because I almost took the back, and it was really, really close. So I did have some big win moments. And really after that fight, after the quarterfinals in the absolute, I kind of, that was really the boost that I needed, because when I won that fight, I was like, oh, okay, I'm here. Like I'm ready, you know, because my first fight was against Raquel Canuto, who was a black belt world champion. I beat her by points. Then I won the quarterfinals. And then after that, I was like, okay, dude, I know I can do this. And so that kind of carried me through the rest of the tournament.
That's pretty cool, man. Like, man, like to win a world championships, you know, nowadays as a first few months as a black belt is not for anybody, because the jiu-jitsu has been there for a long time. As you said, you fought many world champions and some multiple world champions, right? And the thing is, when you train as when you get your blue belt, you fight against people who are blue belts, so they train like maximum 2-3 years, and then brown belt, and then you come get the brown belt. But when you jump to the brown belt, you're fighting people who have the same amount of time that you have trained. But jumping from brown belt to black belt is huge, because you jump into a belt that people has been training probably or competed probably the same amount of time that you actually been training jiu-jitsu, which is not just, but since like teenager, like 5-6 years, and as a black belt already, and the gap is huge. So when you go into that cage and then be able to come out alive, it's got to be a good feeling to say, like, you know what, I'm on the right directions, and then that's what I will be doing, and I'll definitely going to get to the top. And this is pretty cool, man, because one thing that I noticed you knew, when I saw you competing in Abu Dhabi in the beginning of the year, it's like, because I've seen you on the mats and training and all that. We train here as well, and you're like this person, like it's nice and sweet and smiling and chatty, so friendly. But man, when I saw you like before the match, it was like that was so cool that I didn't even want to say anything. I was like, man, she's done this wrong. Like, so do you have any do you kind of keep visualizing before the match, or you just try to forget about it, just focus on what you're going to do? Do you have something like before the match, what to get yourself on the zone, because you completely zone out, like nothing matters for you there?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I always joke like that I'm always smiling and laughing, except for like the last 10 minutes before the fight, because then once like the last 10 minutes before the fight, I'm like different person. So yeah, definitely I'm always like that, and I always pace, like I'm always pacing back and forth. So before my fight, like my pre-fight ritual is like I'm pacing, because I feel like I start like I get this feeling of almost like a like a bullfighter, like in a rodeo, like I'm like the bull behind the cage, and so I'm like waiting, like let me out, and then when the cage, like that's kind of how I try to think of myself, because I think sometimes we can get scared of being in the fight, or like nervous, or like especially someone maybe you lost to them before, or a rival or something like that, or someone who's supposed to be really good or really strong. It's like, oh, I'm kind of like nervous for the fight to start. I try to get myself in a mindset where I'm like, no, I can't wait, like let me out, and then when the gate comes up, boom, I'm going. So I try to get myself in that, whether I really feel that way or not, because there's days where I get nervous about whoever I'm going to fight or whatever. We're all human beings. One of my favorite things is that Lagarto told us before a tournament. I can't remember what tournament it was, but he made this whole speech about like they have 2 arms and 2 eyes and 2 legs just like me, so I'm trying to make sure that I realize that they're human. But yeah, so getting ready to go, and then I visualize usually like the very first part of the match, so like the takedown or whatever I want to do in the middle or in the beginning, and I visualize my hand getting raised. So I try to visualize the feeling of my hand getting raised and really feel what that's going to feel like in my heart, in my head, and let that get me excited. And then there's also some things I say to myself, before, like words that I say, or like I'm the champion, or I'm gonna win, or there's no way that I'm gonna lose, things like that. So when I'm pacing, it's like imagining like the bull or like the animal that's like waiting to get let out of the cage, and then imagining my hand getting raised, and those positive things that I say to myself. So that's what I do right before the fight. That's like the last 10 minutes, and I usually have my music in, and I got like really pumped up, and I try to just zone in on that feeling, and feeling really intense, and my heart rate gets really elevated and my hands start getting sweaty. And usually for me, I know that when like some people like to be really calm. For me, if I'm too calm, it's not good, because I get slow to start. So if I'm really like anxious and excited, like I try to trick myself, like, oh, I'm not nervous, I'm excited, so if I get really anxious and excited, I'm like sweating and my heart's racing, then I know that I'm ready to go, and I'm focused in. So yeah.
A lot of people ask me, Braulio, how can I deal with nerves like before competition? Do you get nervous? And that's, man, dude, it's everyone gets nervous, man. Like,
always.
If I fight now, like against anybody, I will have sweaty hands, dry mouth. the stomach wobbling, won't be able to sleep the day before. You get like the heart rate, you get like but this is part of the your body awareness. And as you said, I have fought once, not once, a couple times, too relaxed, and actually one of those times that I fought so relaxed, I actually lost the match because you know what I mean. You kind of not really. Do you know when I fight the best myself? When I'm injured, because I do everything since they touch the hands. I'm already know that I cannot give away this position, and I'm fighting 100% to don't give no gaps. Those times I think shows that you got to be aware. And then a lot of people ask, but man, but the guy is not nervous. I said, guy, listen, everyone gets nervous. Even the guy that looks the most relaxed, so they think they're already a professional. They are also nervous. It's part of the game. So, sorry.
We're actors.
Exactly. You cannot show, but we do. You do get nervous. I remember one day, I was in the bullpen to compete at the Worlds, and someone came to ask me an autograph. I couldn't. I was shaking so much. I said, "Excuse me, man, can I do it after?" Because I was so nervous. I was like, "Man, the fight's gonna be next," and it's pretty cool. One question before we go for our, because we have a few videos for you here, okay. So some people that are close to you that you separate from, a little surprise. But when you compete, do you like to check your brackets before, or do you like to know who you're gonna fight beforehand? Because I like to see what's gonna be my trajectory, my way. But a lot of people don't. So I'd like to ask you, how do you think?
Yeah, I do. But I think it's something that calms my nerves, because I think for me, like the wondering and like the thinking about it, really like makes me more nervous. So I just like to look at the bracket and say like, okay, like most likely it's going to be like blah, 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 this and this and this. And then of course, if things change then they change, but I like to see it ahead of time because it kind of relaxes my nerves. So I don't have to wonder. And then I definitely look at like the first person that I'm fighting. And I think, I don't really like to watch tape on other people because it makes me more nervous, but my coaches or whoever is working with me, like they'll watch, tape on like the first match and then kind of see if there's anything that we need to adjust. And they kind of do that for me. But I definitely do look at the bracket and see like the potential outcome, because I just feel like it makes me less nervous. Like I like to see it and know what the possibility could be, and then maybe it'll change. But honestly, I think like, if you think about it as like fighting the hardest people, right? You always think like the toughest people are going to win. So if I'm fighting down here and these people are fighting up here and the toughest person's going to win, I think that really like prepares me for like the hardest possible outcome, like the toughest possible outcome would look like this. So then if that doesn't happen, it's almost like a relief, like not a relief, like, oh, I don't want to fight the hard people, but like a relief, like, oh, okay, like I have an even better chance of winning. It's like a math problem, it's like that. So for me, I like to look at it because I feel like it sets myself up to be in a good mindset.
Do you like to see the fights of the people who you might encounter on the next fight?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I love to watch jiu-jitsu, but I have to make sure that I don't like get too invested in it, because then I'm like out of my own mindset. So I like to be like in my focused mindset. And then usually I'll watch like the very beginning of their fight and kind of see like where, like, are they going to pull? Are they going to shoot? Like, what's their initial? But then I try not to watch the whole thing. Like I might watch it later on Flow Grappling or something, but I don't watch it there because I need to stay focused on me. So I watch the beginning though.
I do. I like to watch as well. I go like, let's see my who is on my division, and I see who is on my side of the bracket. Okay, so I'm gonna fight the winner of those two there, and I'm going to check to see, is he gonna be play on top, on bottom, and then what kind of game he plays on the top, what kind of game he tends to go to the bottom, so I can kind of prepare and avoid that kind of game, or to be more calm as well. Okay, he plays the game, I'm used to that, so I'm good. Oh, he played the game that I hate, so I need to avoid. So no, I hate it. I really like that. I think prepares us all to, because the thing is, sometimes like on my division, for example, sometimes there's like 6 people that are
right,
like a high level, like a world champion level, right? But you're not going to fight all of them. First of all, you need to see how a lot of them will kind of fight each other. So just one will come. So get yourself a little bit more. Okay, cool. It's one at a time, but at the same time, it's important. I feel important to see how they are fighting on that day, because we as fighters, we improve, we change, and then we come with a different tactics. And when I see them on that day after, for example, I fought last year and I fight the same guy this year, 1 year later, they might fight differently. 1 year is a long time. With that, do you change much of your game plan? Do you try to fight differently every year, or you stick with your pace?
I have a really like strong base that I usually go towards. But kind of like you, like if I know, for example, like if someone specifically plays like a lot of worm guard, then I make sure that when I'm passing, like I'm avoiding those lapel grips and stuff. And then I get into my passes, instead of, just ignoring it, because like some little like 5-second transition can really change the entire trajectory of the match. So I try to know what they're going to be looking for to avoid that without having it let me change my whole game plan, because my game plan lets me win. My game plan is strong for a reason. So I don't want to change it too much, but I also want to be aware. Like I don't want to go in blind to the fight, as far as like strategy goes. So I would say like my strategy may change here and there, but my game plan as far as like what I do and my moves stays really consistent. But the strategy might change a little bit with different people.
Yeah, the same as me. Because I always pull guard. It doesn't matter what. That's my idea for me. So usually, I used to, even if the guy's gonna pull guard first, I used to go to the takedown, because if I go to the double leg, if he pulls guard, it's 2 points. But if he defends the double leg and I pull guard and I'm good, and then all 0. Okay, now we have our first question here. So Tony, bring it on.
Hey guys, my name is Kevin Figueroa. I'm a brown belt at Gracie Baja Riverside under Professor Kendall. I wanted to share a quick little story about when Professor Kendall took over Riverside. Our main instructor, he left, and so Kendall came over and took over the team. Of course, all of us were worried, we're scared. We didn't know if we were going to mesh with her. But from the first night that she took over, was amazing. Immediately took over the class, made us feel united, made us feel like a team. At the end of class, she pulls me aside and tells me to go to the office to have a conversation. We go into the office, and from there, she lays out her vision of the team, where she wants to take the team, and how she wants to unite the team. From that meeting, I left excited, almost renewed in my quest to be a black belt. So thank you for doing that for our team. Usually when a new professor comes over and takes over the team, it takes about a year for everybody to mesh. She did it in 1 month, and it's amazing for a professor to just integrate with the team and make everybody feel united. Also, from being a world champion herself and an active competitor, she's lit a fire in our team of competing. I personally want to thank you. You've completely changed my game as a brown belt. Everything that it goes with competition, from mindset to drilling to having a plan to even being on my diet. It is so amazing to be a competitor and be in the same bullpen as your professor. She's always at my competition, cheering me on, understanding my game, and making adjustments. Thank you so much. You've taught me how to be a winner, and for that, I am truly grateful.
Oh my God.
That's a good message, Kendall. So
man,
he to pass it on this. This is very, very incredible.
He's a really incredible guy, and he's one of our brown belts at Gracie Baja Riverside. Like he said, his daughter trains, his family's on the mat, and he's one of our leaders here. He helps with the kids, and he's an amazing guy. So very lucky to have him here at Gracie Baja Riverside. He's a great guy. That was so sweet. I'm like all emotional. That was so nice.
That was cool, huh? So we're gonna go straight for another one because we have a few. Let's get on. Blast it with it. Come on.
Cool.
Hello, my name is Elvin. I am a brown belt under Professor Tom Reusing. I wanted to share one of my stories with Professor Kendall Reusing, who's been an instructor of mine for the past several years now. The story I'd like to share is that throughout my journey in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with Gracie Baja, I've been a very consistent student in terms of going to classes and training with my teammates. But competing was not something that was in my mindset at the time. But in 2018, I just had this urge to compete because my children were all competing and doing very well and training very hard. So I decided to compete that year, and I had just had this urge, and I shared that urge with Professor Kendall, and I just approached her in the middle of class, and I just said, you know what, she was a coach at the time, and I said, you know what, Coach, I think I want to compete. I want to do Master Worlds, and I'm older now, and I just had this urge, and the first thing that Professor Kendall said to me was, "That's awesome. I think you should do it. That's incredible. Let's do this." And just the amount of enthusiasm and support I just immediately received from her was so encouraging, and I felt I could do it. And in my first tournament was Master Worlds in 2018. Did well, made it to the quarterfinals in my my division, and she was there. My other head instructor, Professor Saulo Vayara, was there, and my teammates were there, and it was just a very supportive environment. And she was very immediately enthusiastic about my my goals to compete that year, and it made me better, and it made my jiu-jitsu better. But at the same time, I just felt very supported, and that's the type of person that she is. She supports all of our students in Gracie Baja, Corona, and Riverside, and it's made our academy and our family bond in our academy very strong. So I just wanted to share that little story. And it's a real testament to our academy, our environment, and especially Kendall Reusing and our instructors and our professor there. Thank you.
That's so cool, Kendall. As you can see, like so many good experiences that you have been part of it on people's lives, and you know, it must be very good to see them telling that to you, how much positive impact you have caused on their journey. You know, is that something that you have as a goal, as to kind of motivate people and try to make them go through challenges so they can kind of discover themselves and become a better version of themselves?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as you know, coming up in Gracie Baja, like of course, we've always been taught to be good at jiu-jitsu and to be great in competition and to train hard and be a team as far as like the competitors and stuff like that. But even bigger, I talked a little bit about this with Professor Carlos Lemos Jr. on their talk show recently, is that like it kind of goes back to being a competitor and being an instructor at the same time. Like being a competitor is awesome, but it's also like very self-serving and it's very selfish, and there's nothing wrong with being selfish. But it's just like, when we have the power to spread so much positivity and love to the people around us, why would we ever choose not to do that? And I think that it's really easy to create an environment that is positive, supporting, uplifting, and loving when you love what you do and when you love jiu-jitsu and when you love your team. And I think that like Professor Tom, my dad, Professor Saul, and we're kind of the head instructors of these schools. We are all very clear on our vision of bringing jiu-jitsu to everybody. And we've been given that message from Master Carlos and from our instructors, like bringing jiu-jitsu to everyone, but not just jiu-jitsu, bringing Gracie Baja to everyone and bringing that experience to everyone and making sure that there's a place for everyone in our schools, not just a place for people like me, not just a place for people like my dad, not just a place for people like you, a place for everybody who wants to come and better themselves and to learn jiu-jitsu. So like even those two guys that just spoke, like they lead very different lives and they're very different in a lot of ways, but our goal is to give the same experience to them and have them be an equal part of the team at the same time, regardless of their background. And I know, a lot of Gracie Baja schools around the world are doing the same thing, and it's a really magical experience. So very rewarding for me to hear that. But it doesn't feel like that hard of a job. It doesn't really feel like a big job. It just feels very genuine. Like, I love the people around me. I'm going to show them love. I'm going to support them. They give the same back to me. And it's a very healthy community.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is two things that I've been noticing lately, like in every, on my academies, and people are very successful as well on the academies, is everyone appreciating each other and everyone giving back to each other. This is very important, because it shows as well the appreciation, the humbleness of understanding that people are doing something good for you. And then when you recognize that, you want to do the same, because, I got here where I got. It wasn't just by myself. I had the willpower, of course, but I had a lot of help. And then everyone that helped me, I remember, like, the people who I really look up to, who helped me, always said this, bro, look, I don't want nothing back. Just pass it on. And this is a very good, way of thinking as well. I think the universe conspires to make things work, even when you're not under the control of everything. And it seems like you have a very, very nice environment on your academy. You can see how your students talks, and it means a lot to them, and how much they appreciate it. I'm sure they give back to you as well too.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear. It's like, it's just really heartwarming, when you're, oh, thank you for all sharing your inspirational philosophy and enthusiasm. That's a really nice message. I can't read your name. I'm going to butcher it, but I really appreciate that. And thank you for being here as well. Yeah, it's really heartwarming to hear that, when that's our goal. Like, we're here to lift people up. We're here to create a community where everybody is equal and everybody is one, and we're all part of the same team. And to hear that people are getting that. And, these are two men that their whole families train with us as well on the mats. And to imagine, like, my dad always wanted to pass the legacy on to me. I want to pass the legacy on to our students, and our students are passing the legacy on to their children. And I know I have these kids that they're talking about that are, young, 10, 12 teenagers that are then going to be passing that on, not only to maybe future students and teammates, sorry, no, you're good, to future teammates and students, but also to their friends, their family, their husbands, their wives, their kids. And so it's really endless, like the possibilities that this team brings. And it's really special.
It's bringing a very positive impact in everywhere we go, isn't it? That's why it's so rewarding, like, emotionally, because you're doing something that you love. You're doing just because it feels good to do so, and then you see a positive impact. This is incredible. And then you are only 22 years old, and then you're already causing this impact. And you see when it grows, when you get more experience, more the range of students, you see this is priceless. And have you ever did you when did you think about, like, what, I want to pursue this as a career, I want to be Einstein? Did you always wanted to be at some point an instructor, or that being an athlete was always the main goal?
Well, being the athlete was always the main goal in the beginning. Like I said, when my dad asked me, like, at 5 years old to write down my goals, one of my main goals that I wrote down was to be an Olympic champion in jiu-jitsu. Like, that was my big thing. And I've always been a full-time athlete, whether it was in wrestling or jiu-jitsu, and that's always been my main concern. Sorry if I look distracted. The guys just finished teaching, so they're coming in and out. But yeah, so, like, I've always been focused on that. And I think, when I came back from wrestling, like I worked at Starbucks for a little bit, and then I worked at the school a little bit, and it really happened naturally, where the more I started teaching, the more I realized that's what I loved, was to spread jiu-jitsu to people, whether it was like teaching a one-on-one class, whether it was training with the students in the academy, signing people up, doing like program director situation, helping with the billing, just helping with marketing. Like, honestly, for me, I love to teach, but it really kind of goes beyond that. Like, I really just love to help the schools in whatever way it needs to be done. If I need to help clean and someone else is teaching, I'm happy to do that. If I'm signing somebody up, I'm happy to do that. Like, I really find the most joy when I'm playing all the parts, because I love to it's like it's an organism, right? Like, the whole school is an organism. So I love to be a part of the whole organism. I like to do all the jobs. I'm very high energy. I'm very all over the place. So I like to be around doing different things. So I do love to teach, and I love to watch people's journeys, but it's really bigger than that. I just love to watch the vision come true, in different ways, talking to the students, talking to the parents. I'm very social like you are. So I get really close to a lot of the students easily. But it was probably, in the last 2 or 3 years that really started to come together for me.
That's pretty cool. Do you recommend, do you think that competition makes you improve better when you put yourself out there?
Yeah, I think it does. And I also think it improves your entire team. For example, like with this fight to win fight that just came with Gabby, things were kind of weird because of coronavirus and there wasn't as much regular training, but we had been allowed to start getting back into like small groups, just like my main core, competition team. But it really changed the entire environment of everything because I was getting ready for a fight. All these guys were coming together to help me get better, and then also to work with each other. They were like watching film and like coming into train, like tell Kevin, who had just spoke, was like coming in, like telling me what he watched on the tape and stuff. So it makes a individual person better, of course, because, you know, it changes like the intensity of our training. We're forced to look at the places that we need to improve. It's also just a good test to see where you're at mentally and how you perform under pressure and under stress, because you get a different feeling than when you're just training. So of course it's good for me individually, or whoever wants to compete individually. But I think it's also really amazing for the team because it changes the entire focus of the ecosystem of the school or the organism of the school, where especially, you know, if you have this healthy environment where we are supporting each other. And I know you've seen this as well in your own academies. One person's getting really ready for something, or maybe you have a group of people going to the Worlds or a group of people going to like some tournament on the weekend. Everybody is now focused on that and helping them learn. And in turn, not only does it make that one or two people better, but everybody's training with more intensity. Everybody's, you know, checking in. Hey, how are you doing? How's your recovery? Like, are you feeling sore? Like, it just makes everybody so much closer. And for me, in our schools, it changes the entire environment and just makes it's a very special feeling when you have an entire team helping a few people or maybe a lot of people or one person working towards a goal. So I think it's, of course, really important for us individually because we start to focus on these things that we weren't focusing on before. It helps us clean up our diet. We're more, you know, there's a timeline. I think we can all get better at jiu-jitsu, but when you put a timeline on it of like, oh, I'm going to compete on this day specifically, it helps us amp things up really fast. Then when that happens with the individual, it starts happening with the organism and with the ecosystem of the school. And that's really what I've seen. I didn't know that was going to happen because, you know, I was always part of like organized team sports in high school. And so we were all competing on the same days. But what I've really seen here at these schools is the amount, like when you give to your team wants to give back. And so we really are there for each other, and it changes the entire environment. And I think really sharpens everybody very quickly because they want to be the best version of themselves to help you be the best version of yourself. And that goes both ways. So it's really special.
And everyone motivates each other. I believe too, you know, like I think when we have some people competing in the academy, you know, I think the level always ripples down, you know, and everyone gains. And it's funny because in jiu-jitsu we are an individual sport, but we need each other to improve and to get better. You know, it's very hard just to train by yourself, you know, and improve in a competition level. So for sure, one thing that I always try as well, you know, go to different Gracie Barras, invite different people from other Gracie Barras to come here and kind of mix and match. And you have a little bit of a feel, you know, and the CompuNet is a perfect, you know, time for people who are not very confident to go out there and compete against anybody, but at least you compete with people who has the same kind of values, the same integrity, and it feels a little bit more safer because it's all this environment. You know, I do motivate my students to compete, and I think everyone who has competed, they got a little extra punch on the improvement on the journey, and everyone kind of, even if they don't compete, but it makes an impact even on people who doesn't compete. So I think it's pretty cool. And I'm a competitive person myself, so it's all great. All right, so let's one more Tony, let's go.
Hey, Professor Kendall, this is Professor Bobby here. Sometimes you're a partner in crime when I'm not working hard. You know, over the years, I've seen you blossom, you know, achieve great feats, become a world champion. And do you have any advice for those young ladies out there that may possibly in the future want to be a world champion or want to achieve even a common goal? Can you give us an insight on what you do and how you achieve your goals? And how you prepare yourself for a match, or how do you prepare yourself for just the everyday things that go on in life? I know that's a hard question, but I know you can answer it.
That's cool. You already answered the last part, but the advice for the girls that want to compete is a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that jiu-jitsu has come a long way for women. Yeah, like I said, when I started training when I was 5 years old, there were like barely any girls. It was like me and like Professor Ricardo's daughter, and that was pretty much it. And so there's so many of us now, and we're having more amazing women leading classes and leading schools and leading the way in competition. So it gives a better, like, it's interesting growing up because I had so many amazing men, to watch, like so many amazing leaders, like yourself and so many others. But so when I saw Anna Laura competing, I saw myself represented. I saw myself, I saw something I could aspire to. Like yes, like I have a lot of men that I look up to, but when I saw that, it was like, oh, I can do that, because she's doing that. Like, that means I can do it. So I think that that's really important. Like, representation is really important. It's huge. And the same thing is, kind of happened over the years. It's interesting. Like before, like there were only ever Brazilian world champions. Like that was it, because there was just so much more experience and had, so many more years. And for me to start seeing, some American people win as well, like kind of gave me more hope. Like, oh wait, no, like I'm represented. Like I can do that. So representation is huge. And as far as it goes with women, like as far as competing and goals and stuff, I think like the main thing that I like to think about is that you need to create a lifestyle that you like to live, regardless of the outcome. Sorry, regardless of the outcome. So, for example, like I want to be a world champion. I want to be an ADCC champion. There's a lot of things that I want to accomplish, right? So, with all of these things, like one thing that I would see in the wrestling community, right, that's so focused on the Olympics, that's a very scary environment because the Olympics is only every 4 years. So if you have someone who starts as a young age and then they try to make the Olympics 3 times, that's 12 years because 4, 4, 4. So if they take second place at the trials 3 times in a row, that's 12 years of their life that they spent only focused on this one goal that they never achieved. You never want to be the person that has that happens and then you look back and feel like you wasted your life. That's very, very scary for competitors. Like if you, like for me, I didn't always know this, and I've learned this over the years of like, I used to think that if you could be happy even though you lost, you didn't have what it takes to be a champion. If you cared about anything else other than winning, then you didn't have what it takes to be a champion and you weren't made to do it. Now I've realized it's just not true. You can have both. Like for me, like I care immensely about winning competitions. Of course, I want to come out on top. If I didn't have that competitive drive, then I wouldn't spend so much time training and working so hard and giving it all on my day of the tournament. Of course, but at the same time, I can't let my self-worth depend on my water bottle is falling. I can't let my self-worth depend upon a result of a competition. So if I lose, like when I lost to Gabby, like when I lost to Gabby last Saturday, I was really upset about the loss and had to process that. But after about 24, 48 hours, I really started to need to come back to the realization of like, wait, whether I lost or I won, I loved the process of getting there. I loved training. I loved working with my team. I loved watching tape and getting ready. I loved traveling. I loved traveling to competitions. Like I love the lifestyle, So for women who want to compete, this is a really long answer, but it's super important. For women who want to compete, make sure that you make your lifestyle a lifestyle that you love and that you can really enjoy on a day-to-day basis, because winning is not going to make you happy. It's fun to win. It's great to see that recognized. It's an amazing accomplishment to be on the top of the podium, but it is not going to make you happy if you're miserable living the lifestyle you're living. You have to love the lifestyle, and then winning will make it even better. It'll make it even more exciting. But if you're miserable every day doing something to achieve some goal and it's like not even fun to you, especially if you're cutting weight and you're miserable, and then you win, you're not suddenly going to be happy. You might be excited for that day, but then a week later, it's going to feel like, like what now? I'm depressed, and I've been there and I had that experience in wrestling a lot. And with jiu-jitsu, I've learned that I have created a life that I love to live. I love to teach. I love to be at the schools. I love to train hard. I love getting on the plane and going to the tournament. I love the nerves. I love eating healthy, getting ready for it. The celebration afterward, or just eating with my team afterward, whether I won or lost, and being with my teammates. I love the people I'm with. So my main piece of advice, and there's so many things that can help us be successful, but my main piece of advice is really just to make sure that you love the lifestyle you're living, and if you love the lifestyle of competing at a very high level, awesome. If you love to train casually and then just kind of compete once in a while because you think it's fun and enjoyable, then that's what you should do. There's no pressure to be like, I have to be 100% all the way. You can just do the part of it that you enjoy and be around your teammates and get the best out of it. The best plan is the plan that you enjoy the most, So for me, this is the plan I enjoy the most. It wasn't like that in wrestling. And I thought it was, and I was miserable for a long time. But for me, that was not the best course of action. Now, this is the best course of action for me, but I have to learn to make sure that I love myself. I love my life. I'm living in a way that I respect and that I appreciate no matter what happens on the day of the competition. I hate to say this, like I would never want this to come true, but say I never win ADCC, right? Like I like don't even want to think about it, but say I never win ADCC. I'm still going to look back and realize that I spent the days of my life the way I wanted to spend them and that I don't regret anything. And I loved every moment of it. If I'm looking back right now and not seeing that, there's a problem and I need to change something. So whether it's jiu-jitsu or you want to be a doctor or you're working hard on your art career or your music career, whatever it is, it needs to be something that you love. So I know that was a really, really long answer, but it's something I'm really passionate about. And it took me a long time to figure that out. It took me years and years of competing to figure that out. That winning, while it's exciting, it only enhances things. It doesn't make you happy if you're miserable. You have to love what you're doing. So yeah, hope that makes sense.
No, perfect sense, because it brings me back to exactly when I was 22. You know, it was the first time that I actually had my like a man-to-man conversation with my dad, because I was deciding to leave off jiu-jitsu because it's something that I really had the passion for it, you know. And I was speaking to him, and I mentioned this a couple of chats shows back. But I remember because I was doing production engineering for 3.5 years, which is a big course, is a universities, which is very well paid and all that. Yeah. But I was doing not because I wanted to do it. I was doing because I had to do. Because in Brazil, if you don't have a degree, it would be very unlikely for you to be very successful in life, unless if you are, you know, connected. And I didn't have much of connection on things. But then I realized then, you know, that a friend of mine, he took the best job that everyone wanted to have while we were doing our course. And you know, it was a international company. And then I remember that everyone was like, "Oh my God, man, I can't believe he got the job. He's done for life and stuff." And one day he came to me and said, "Braulio, man, on the holiday weekend, it was my dad's birthday, and there was a little problem on the factory. I was in the beach with my girlfriend, my dad, my mom, my brother, and I had to let it go everything to go to the factory to sort it out." And I was like, "My God, man." That was the first click, you know, because I didn't have the passion and the love for what I was going to pursue, to leave my family in the middle of a family time that I work during the whole week, that the only time that I can have for my family, and I have to let it go to do something that I didn't have so much enjoyment of doing it. And then that was the first click. And then I realized that everything has ups and downs. And you said perfectly, if you don't love something, when it goes on the down, it's not going to be hard. It's going to be hard to carry on, because you're going to start blaming, rethinking, try to think, I want some change. And if you do something that you have the passion for it, you do anyway, because that's you. That's what you love doing anyway. And that was his first. When I speak to him, he was worried about my future. But bro, you're gonna leave the production engineering course. How about jiu-jitsu? I said, "Dad, listen, I love doing jiu-jitsu. This is what I love to do. I really enjoy it, and I wanted this as my lifestyle. And if I love something and I'm passionate about it, and I'm not doing bad yet. I was a brown belt at the time, and I know that I will persist. I will keep going forward. Doesn't matter how many times I fall, and I want to be the best in it, right? And if you get the best gardener in the world, he's all right. You know, he's fine. If you get the best outside plain wall painter, if you get the best plain wall painter in the world, he's fine. So I want to be the best in jiu-jitsu. I will be fine then. You know, like it goes to me, "You're ready. You can go." But that's everything. And that was the same reason, Kendall, that I didn't pursue the MMA. I experienced, because it's the next thing that I wanted to practice, the challenge, you know. And I didn't really had as much fun or enjoyment on the lifestyle of the MMA, for the weight cut, for the the atmosphere on the training every day is like you gotta hate someone to be able to do well. And then that's why I came back to focus only on jiu-jitsu for that main reason, because it's something that I love. I have a passion for it. And when we start seeing the positivity that you cause on people around you, and that was the biggest motivation, you are it's very good to see you so young and then having all this mindset already so strong. You're definitely gonna have a very, very, very bright future, and I'm really looking forward to carry on and watching your journey.
Thank you.
We have one more question. Come on.
I think we had a question in the comments too. I don't know if they want to do that one first or the video.
Okay, let's go.
Your thoughts on encouraging kids? Oh, you got it. Oh, who are enrolled in BJJ by parents, no choice of their own to foster their enjoyment and enthusiasm and make it less painful when they're at the academy. Yeah, this is a really good question. And I feel like I have a lot of insight here just because I started so young, and then also I teach young kids. So now I'm on both sides of it, right? So I started that way, and then I teach as well. So let me just reread the question again. Encouraging kids who are enrolled by parents to foster their enjoyment and enthusiasm, make less. I see. So like if they're not really enjoying it and they're being forced to be there. Yeah, so this is a tough one. I'm assuming you're an instructor, because I can't read the name. Oh, those things are falling. I'm assuming you're an instructor. It'd be different if it was the parent. But if for the instructor, this is a tough position to be in. And I've had some kids like this too, where, the parent wanted them to be there for good reason. They wanted them to be there, for self-defense and to get more social and to get some physical activity. But maybe it's not what the kid's enjoying right now, like they need a break and they need to come back later and have more fun when they're 8 or whatever it is. So in that situation, like usually I talk to the parents, right? Because it's a weird balance. Like you don't want to tell them to quit, but you also don't want the kid to get burnt out on jiu-jitsu, because the last thing I want is for a kid who is, 6 or 7 to be coming all the time and to get burnt out, and then finally the parent lets them quit, and then they never come back, because when they're 12, they're like, oh no, I hated jiu-jitsu, I don't want to go back there, so I don't want that either. So I think normally I like to talk to the parent in that situation to say, hey, it seems like Johnny is not really having that much fun in class. I wonder if you would consider maybe let's have him try coming 1 to 2 times a week for a while, instead of trying to bring him so often, and see if that's something that works for him, and then, see how the parent, and of course, explain, like for me, like I always explain, like as if we are experts, but I make sure that they know, like, look, I've been doing this for a very long time. And what we have found is that when kids come a little bit less, they're way more excited to be here on the days that they're here, and they're more willing to participate. And then I also say, and one thing that I think is really important, because jiu-jitsu is an important skill for them to learn. I want them to learn self-defense. Make sure, like, ask the parent, like, hey, like, are you using it as a punishment? Like, are you saying, like, oh, if you do this, we're going to have to go to jiu-jitsu today? Like, make sure that the psychology around it is right. Like, we don't want to paint jiu-jitsu in a negative light, because the parents are so influential. Like, we never want to say, like make jiu-jitsu sound like it's the negative thing or like a punishment. So make sure the psychology is right. And then again, with the kids being there, because we don't want to tell parents how to do their job. It's a very delicate balance, because we are leaders to the kids, but they're not our children. But we are experts a lot with these kids and what they're doing. So I think also, like phrasing it to the parents, like, is there a way that we can, maybe what if they come to class and we kind of let them, what's the word? Like, let them have a relaxed version of class and really just talk to them about the game and get them really excited about the game, things like that. So it's a very delicate balance, and it really depends on how the parent reacts, to be honest. Like, it depends on how the parent handles the situation. But I do 3 things. One, I would check in on like the psychology of how they're talking about just like, hey, John, I noticed little Johnny is not having a lot of fun in class lately. I'm wondering, like, how does he talk about jiu-jitsu at home? Like, what's the conversation about jiu-jitsu at home? Is it a punishment? Are there other things that he enjoys doing? And then from there going on, like, hey, like maybe what do you think about having Johnny come 1 time a week just for a month? Let's test it out and see how it goes. And let's see if he has more fun or if he starts to miss it, or maybe even skip a whole week and then bring him and see if he has a little bit more fun. And then the third thing is like us, like our actual responsibility. The first 2 are kind of on the parent. The third is like our responsibility. And in that third section, I would say there's a few things. Number 1, making sure that our language with the kid during class is very, very positive. Like, hey, Johnny, we're going to have so much fun today. We're going to play some games. I'm really excited. And then during the class, specifically asking that kid, like, hey, Johnny, do you remember the answer to number one? Like really engaging them one-on-one. With those kids that are not engaged in the class, I try to get them like super involved with me one-on-one. Like, hey, like, what do you think about this? Making sure I'm checking in on them, and then letting them be a leader during the game, or letting them lead the student creed or something like that, to make like those kids, like I really try to make them leaders in the class, so that they start viewing the class as more of like a time for them to shine, instead of it being a time for them to go and like learn something that they don't want to learn about. I try to make them a leader, lead the student creed, lead the warm-up, lead the game. What was the answer to number one, Johnny? I know you remember because you were paying attention, things like that. That's kind of our job, and that would be like categorized in section number 3. So that's how I handle those situations. But there's only so much you can do, with parents, because they're not, it's not our kid. But I try to come from a place of always talking about how we are the authority. Like, yes, what we have found is over the years, what we've experienced with, I had this one kid who took a break. They froze their account, took a break for a month, and then they come back, and things like that, making sure we sound like we're coming from a lot of authority, because we're experts. We do this for a living. So hope that was helpful. But if you need if there's anything else, like specifically, just find me on social media, send me a message, and I'll try to help out with it any way that I can, because this is an area I'm really passionate about. So we don't want kids to burn out. We don't want them to never want to come back. Sometimes it's better for the kid to take 6 months out and come back later, rather than them never come back to jiu-jitsu because they had a bad experience. So very, very passionate about that. So let me know if you have any other questions. You can send me a message.
Hey, Professor Kendall, what would you say to the parent of a 5-year-old that wants their kid to win kids' pens?
Oh God, that was really weird because Professor Sal was here, so that was really confusing. Okay, so this is a really great question to follow up with, and I have some mixed feelings about it, because I love when parents are super passionate about their kids in jiu-jitsu. I think it's awesome. I was that 5-year-old kid who wanted to win competitions, and I was really passionate about competing. But it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, right? So like, when you think about kids, we have to think about longevity, right? And it's the same with adults, to be honest. Like, we have to think about longevity. So when we're handling a parent or a kid who, or a parent who wants their kid to win, especially if it's like a kid who like doesn't really reflect that same interest, it's the same kind of answer or situation with the parent. Like, hey, like, let's check in, like, hey, John, how is Johnny responding to want to come to class? Like, when you say it's time to come to jiu-jitsu, what is his response? Kind of checking in with that and say, like, look, I really think, for example, we've had kids like this in the past where their parents would want to bring them 6-7 days a week, and the kids were getting burnt out after 6 months. And I really had to check in with them and say, like, hey, I've been noticing that, like, when Johnny's in class, he's not really that engaged anymore, or he's not having that much fun, or maybe he's not really enjoying the fundamentals kids classes, and he's really only enjoying the advanced kids classes because he's been training for a long time, blah, blah. What can we do to remedy that? Like, would you be willing to bring them, only 2 days a week for the next few weeks to see if his interest spikes up, or maybe completely take the week off and let him go to the beach, or let him go to some water park or something that he wants to do, or play video games, just zone out after homework. What do you think about that? And kind of having that conversation. And then saying, the reason I bring this up is because we have a lot of experience in this area. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of kids in this situation quit after 6 months or a year because they just get burnt out. Imagine, and I kind of bring this back to the parent, like, imagine, being Johnny and being here 6-7 days a week and sparring hard for an hour or 2 hours, and having to do that every day, week after week, for over a year. Most people wouldn't survive that, and I kind of remind them, like, without being a jerk about it, like, oh, you couldn't do it. I don't want to say that, like, without, like, because sometimes parents forget, like, their kids are superhuman, and kids have so much energy. They forget how hard it is. And especially if they don't train and they don't understand how difficult and how hard on your ego jiu-jitsu is, it's hard for kids too. So I kind of try to bring it back and remind them, like, hey, this is really difficult. And I try to use my own experience as well. So bringing it back to the original question about kids pan down specifically, I try to say, like, like, is this something Johnny wants to do, or what's the language like at home? And then I try to have conversations with little Johnny and say like, hey, I think you're doing a really great job in training. What are your thoughts about competition? Are you excited about competing? Are you, and just really get down to earth with them and see where they're at. So again, with the parents, the last thing I'll say about this is just, it's always coming back to longevity. Like, what are your long-term goals? Do you want them to be, a world champion? Do you want them to have self-defense? And then I just say like, coming back to that, the way to do that is by letting them make their own choices. And I always come back to my own experience of like, when I was young, it was always up to me. If I wanted to train, I had to tell them I wanted to train. If I wanted to compete, I had to tell them I wanted to compete. It was never being forced into it. And I am now a 22-year-old black belt world champion. So if you want your kid to do well, you have to let them make their own choices, because I have so many friends who started at that age and their parents were really forceful about it, and they quit when they were 14 because they were phenoms. They were so great. Like all these kids to the teenage years who were so incredible, they quit at 18 when they could finally make their own choice because they didn't have any freedom. It's just like the kids who go off to college and get in a lot of trouble because their household was way, way too strict because they never had a choice. So with all that being said, it comes down to communication with the kid one-on-one. So the kid actually feels like you really care about them. So because they don't really have a voice in that situation, usually with their parents, then it comes down to communicating with the parents and then finding alternative situations and kind of explaining where you're coming from and using my own personal experience with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I think a lot of parents as well, they try to kind of live the success through the kids that they didn't achieve. And I think this can put the kids a little bit under pressure. And then, as you said, the teenaging point is very, very crucial. So if you put the kids under pressure against the will from 5 years old until they are 15, they already have 10 years of jiu-jitsu or whatever they're doing. And then when they have the time, when they start kind of getting out, to be able to feel the freedom, that's why it can go all wrong. That's why I don't push my kids neither. When they want to train, they come out, and then I give them like a carrot, because I know it's important, the environment. But I also give them the opportunity to do other sports as well, so they can kind of be more, good for coordination. I think it helps a lot. And for sure, now my oldest one already is addicted. You can know. Let me show something. I learned this in the class. Did you know that? I said, oh my God, I never heard it before. It's very funny. Okay, now look, we have 6 videos now. We're gonna try to be a little bit more quick. Okay, on that one.
That's it.
Hi, Kendall. My name is Chase. And I want to ask you a couple of questions. First question is, what's your favorite move? Mine is the double-legged takedown. Second question, do you like teaching and competing better? I like competing better. And thank you for showing great leadership and compassion and warriorship. Bye.
That was so cute. Thank you, Chase, for your questions. To answer my favorite move, I have a lot of moves. I love the double leg. I love the double leg a lot. So we're similar in that area. And lately, I have really been liking working on guillotine, so chokes from like the front headlock position. So I've been working on that a lot. It's my favorite right now, but I love the double leg takedown. And then teaching or competing, I think I'm more of a natural born competitor. I'm very competitive and I like the intensity of competing. So that might rank number 1 for me. But teaching is a very close second because I love sharing my passion for jiu-jitsu and my passion for competing with others, especially when I'm working with other competitors. So I'm very passionate about that. And I think, was there another question? Or I think it was just saying thank you. And thank you so much, Chase, for logging in and sending a message. That was really sweet. And thank you for your leadership as well.
All right, so let's go. Tony, let's bring it out. Another one.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Professor Anna here, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about Kendall, good friend of mine. I know Kendall and her whole family since I moved to the United States like 13 years ago. And I remember Kendall going to the headquarters as a yellow belt, so little, but already have like such a strong personality, and it hasn't changed at all. So nowadays, Kendall, it's one of my favorite train partners to train with. since she's so tough and she has that uh, spirit of never quitting, which make her an even better competitor, an even better businesswoman. So I know she takes care of one of the Gracie Bajas in Riverside, and she does an amazing job out there. And actually, my question for Kendall today, it's a personal question because I would like to know. We never had that conversation before, and that would be a surprise for me. I would like to know if she has stopped now that she's a black belt and she has set goals and what she wants to accomplish in the sport and the jiu-jitsu scenario. So I'm looking forward for the answer, and I hope you guys all are doing super well. Kendall, I see you on the mat. Can't wait to train with you again. Bye bye.
That was awesome. Professor Anna kicks my butt all the time, so we train together a lot. Cool. So, what were you saying?
She's tough.
She's so tough. Like, it's unbelievable. Like any man who asks me about jiu-jitsu, I just want to send him to train with her. Like, she's so tough, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so answer the question. My goals as far as the black belt go, kind of want to follow in her footsteps somewhat. She is definitely one of the most dominant female black belts that there ever has been. And she doesn't talk about him very much because she's very modest and she's very humble. But she was, even at a brown belt, beating most female black belts back in the day when brown and black belt was combined. She won the worlds, and she could beat every brown and black belt after out there. She doesn't talk about it very much, but she's like, not only did she win, but she was extremely dominant when she competed. So it was very inspiring to me. And of course, she won ADCC as well. That was like the one year that Gabby Garcia did not win. And that was incredible. So, and we had 2 Gracie Barra girls on the top of the podium that year. So that was special. So anyway, my goals are very much to follow in those footsteps. You know, I want to be one of the most winningest female jiu-jitsu stars ever in the world. So I want to win ADCC. I want to win the black belt worlds. I want to win the absolute black belt worlds gi. I want to repeat in the no gi and win ADCC multiple times. And I'm not sure exactly, you know, as far as like a stopping point or how many times, because I'm 22 now, so I still have quite a few years left of like an athletic prime. But yeah, so we'll see. So definitely, you know, probably up until I'm 30. So we'll see if it continues past that. But I want to win. I want to be one of the most winningest females ever. So kind of like, you know, people set the bar like Buchecha and Gabby Garcia have won so many times and repeated their success so many times. I want to do the same thing. So I want to be one of the biggest names in jiu-jitsu, like a household name in jiu-jitsu, male or female. And secondly, I really want to bring more eyes to jiu-jitsu. I think women are very marketable, and women have a very, very good opportunity to make jiu-jitsu more mainstream by getting, you know, really big into like the health and fitness and wellness areas. Like, you know, even think about like Cosmopolitan and big magazines like that. Like, I think that women are very marketable, and we can make jiu-jitsu more mainstream by getting into these other areas. So that's one of my goals, to grow my social media, to kind of grow my presence in the world, to start to make jiu-jitsu more mainstream and create a lot more opportunities for not just women, but men, of course, but more opportunities for athletes in jiu-jitsu, so that we can, you know, have more athletes making a living, to grow the Gracie Baja Ambassador program in that way is very similar. So of course I have my own competitive goals, but I also want to continue to create more opportunities for, you know, myself, my generation, but also the generation after of the warriors that are coming up through the ranks right now. So those are my 2 main goals right now.
Oh, that's pretty good, man. I'm really looking forward to see you compete. When you're going to compete next? Do you have anything planned?
It's hard to say. I'm working with Fight to Win right now to do some more super fights, but there's nothing really planned. So we have the super fights coming up. I'm working with him right now to decide on the dates. And then as far as the next organized tournaments, I believe that the UAE or the AJP is putting on the World Pro. They said in November, so we'll see if they can have an organized tournament in November. But I'm like the top ranked person in there, so I'll be invited to compete. So that should be in November. I don't think Nogi Worlds will be happening because IBJJF kind of canceled everything for the year. But my next big focus is ADCC, which will be next August.
Yeah, I'll be there for sure. I'll be there. So one more question. Come on, Tony, let's go.
Hey everyone, Professor Marcia here from Gracie Barra, Georgia. Hey Kendall, wanted you to share with everyone about your 2017 comeback from Pan Am's to Worlds. I had the honor and privilege to have watched many of your fights since you were a yellow belt. So on the 2017, I know there was a special comeback from Pan Am's to Worlds, and I would love you to share with everyone what went through your mind and, you know, how exactly did you get prepared and what did you do different, because you had very different results. Congratulations on everything you have been accomplishing. It's been a real honor to have watched you grow on the mats of Gracie Barra, and I'm just very happy to be here today and having you share a little bit of your story with us.
Awesome. I know we have a few more to get through, so I'll try to be a little more quick. So thank you, Professor Marcia. I see your message. Then you're here watching, and you're so sweet, and you've been a great inspiration for me for a long time. So for those of you guys who don't know, 2017, I had just come back from wrestling, so I was very new to the jiu-jitsu scene again. I had just started competing again. I was a blue belt because I had like left when I was 13, and I competed as a blue belt when I was 12. So then I came back and I was like an automatic blue belt at 18. So that was kind of weird. But anyway, the morning of Pan Am's, I was so excited to go compete. But the morning of Pan Am's, I had just won the Nogi Worlds, like double gold Nogi Worlds in December at blue belt. And then so Pan Am's was in the beginning of 2017. And I woke up with like a horrible flu, like in the morning, like 2 hours or 3 hours before I was going to compete. I was throwing up everywhere. It was horrible. But I begged my parents to take me to the venue. I was like, no, I'm going to compete. Like, I have to do this. Like, there's Pan Am's. Like, I can't miss it. So I got them to, like, pick me up and drag me in the car because I couldn't even walk on my own. I was, like, fainting. They dragged me there and dragged me to the venue and kind of, like, carried me in the venue. And I went in, like, one of the locker rooms, and I was, like, laying down on the floor. And my mom was in there, and I was like, I'm going to compete. And she was like, no, you're not. You can't compete. And I was, like, throwing up. And she was like, I'm going to compete. And so I was trying to stand up to go out to the weigh-in, and I'm like, because I competed like 9 a.m, so it was really early, so I didn't have time to recover. And I tried to like get dressed and go out to the weigh-in, and I was just throwing up and falling over. It was really bad, and so I didn't end up competing. And they told him I wasn't going to do it because it was time for me. They were calling my name, and I was just like in the middle of the bathroom, so there was no option. So I didn't compete, even though I was like crying and telling them to let me. And so I didn't get to compete as a blue belt, but I just won the Nogi Worlds. And my dad thought that I was ready for purple belt. So I literally got promoted to purple belt right after that, right before the Worlds, like a month or two before the Worlds. This was also like the ADCC trials I think the ADCC trials was in February, right before I'm hoping I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the ADCC trials was right before the Pan Am. So I had just done ADCC trials as a blue belt. I took second place. Then I went into, so I was really excited about Pan Ams. Then I went and I had the flu. Then I got my purple belt. Then I went to Worlds, and I ended up winning first place at the purple belt Worlds. I won first place in my division, and I took second in the absolute. And as far as mindset goes, like I really, like I just I go into every competition thinking I'm just going to destroy, like thinking I'm just going to win. Like I know that I have to put myself there to do well. But the thing about it is I just come back to jiu-jitsu, and I wasn't really that immersed in the world. And so I don't think I really thought that Worlds was that big of a deal. Like, I don't know why. Like, I just really thought it was like a tournament, you know? And so I treated every tournament the same. I went into the tournament. I was very excited to be there, very excited to compete. And I smashed, and I got some submissions. I ended up winning in the finals. I had a very tough fight. Professor Marcia was there during the absolute watching all the matches, and they were very tough. I fought a lot of girls in the lighter weight division that were so fast and really impressive, and really made me work super hard. And I ended up losing in the finals. And I remember what's significant about that day is that I was happy to win the weight class, but then when I lost in the finals, that's all that I cared about of the absolute. And I really discounted winning the weight class. And so I remember that was one of the moments, I remember looking back on, deciding that the lifestyle was more important than the results, because I was so depressed over losing the absolute that I couldn't even celebrate winning the weight class. And I look back on that, and I've learned a lot since then. But I look back and see that as a much younger version of myself. It's only been a few years. But I just went in, like, I honestly didn't even realize like how big of a deal the Worlds was. I don't know why. I just hadn't really been, like, I was so disconnected from jiu-jitsu and the competition scene that I didn't really see it as that big of a deal until later on. So now I do, but it was really crazy. I just got my purple belt, and but I knew I deserved to be there. I was ready to be there, so I was very excited.
Oh, Marsha, it's always good to see Professor Marsha all the way from Georgia. You know, she's so good. She's Kiana as well. She inspires a lot on you, her daughter, and she's good potential. She reminds a lot of you as well, even on the looks. Man, imagine the team. Well, how do you see? Oh, it's going to be already almost. How would you see the level of the girls in jiu-jitsu here in comparison to the last 10 years, and what do you think is there any more improvement? What do you think is going to be faster improvement, because it's catching up? You know, I think it's the first level.
It is completely different. Like, I've watched Kiana compete a few times, for example. I had the pleasure of coaching her a few times as well, and the level of the girls at this point, I mean, just everyone in general, the kids and the teenagers, but especially the women, is so much higher than it was when I was that age, you know? And it's just incredible. Like, I don't want to take too much time talking about it because I know we'll have to get through a few more videos, but it's very impressive. It's really inspiring to me. I hope I can play a part in like leveling up the girls that are in our academy. And it's just going to keep going up. Kiana is one of the ones who's like a trailblazer on this path of really showing what our new generation of women are going to be looking like, and it's great. It's also scary for me as an adult knowing that they're coming, because I know that they're coming with so much technique and so much amazing tenacity. So I'm really excited to see it, and I'm excited too because it's going to push me to continue to get better. You know, I'm the young generation now, but I won't always be. You know, I'm going to be the older generation at some point too, and I know that these young ladies are going to be pushing me to improve throughout the years. I'm very excited to see the evolution and to have the women really have the respect of the jiu-jitsu that they deserve and that they've earned.
That's awesome. All right, let's just skip for the next one. Come on. That we will like that one.
Having Kendall as my older sister has definitely been the biggest blessing in my life. I think as a younger sibling, you're very inclined to kind of follow what your older siblings doing and kind of learn from them and get involved in the things that they're involved in. And I'm just really thankful that my older sibling was Kendall, because she's such a unique, amazing, and talented person. And I was able to, you know, revolve my life around the lessons that she taught me. And I am the person I am today because of her.
Oh, that was so cute. For those of you guys who don't know, is my sister. She is about to turn 20, so we're like 2.5 years apart. But that was really sweet. Huh?
You guys look alike.
Yeah, everyone says that we look a lot alike. She's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. She didn't spend as much time in jiu-jitsu as I did as a young kid, but it was kind of the same. Like my parents didn't force her to train, and she did a little bit, but she was in and out. And my parents didn't force her to train, and I think that was the best thing ever, because then she got involved in wrestling. She took second at the state. She won the CIF championship. It was incredible. And then she ended up coming back to jiu-jitsu and getting a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. She actually goes to UC San Diego and trains with Professor Ale down there in San Diego. So she's part of our community, and it's been awesome to see her blossom and see her find her own path and things. So I'm very proud of her.
That's pretty good. So now let's go for the big ones. Come on.
Okay.
What's this one about?
Last story, the one I wanted to put in is from 80s. You tell what it was.
Oh, the very first Abu Dhabi that they had in the United States was in Long Beach, long time ago.
No, not that long ago.
It was the first one they had in the United States.
Oh.
It was the one that Hodger won. Hodger beat Jacare in the finals. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
And Kira
won it. Yeah, and Hodger won the. Is this all on the tape?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So we had tickets. And
we all went. A bunch of people from the school. We bought a block of tickets, and we all went down.
Pyramid, right?
It was at the Pyramid in Long Beach, and Kendall decided she wanted to wear a gi, right? So
she wore a little blue gi.
She wore her gi
all day.
And and all the Machado brothers, Hodger, all these people signed her gi.
I tried to find it,
including Eddie Bravo.
Kendall, I tried to find it in your closet, but I couldn't find it. I know it's in there, and someday we're gonna what? So someday you're
Whatever.
gonna do something with it, but
Yeah,
it's
that was
got
pretty funny.
signatures all over it.
She was ready to go. Yeah,
And she walked around in it all day. There's a few people that remember that. Like I
Yeah.
think
There's a picture on the-
Felicia O
Yeah.
has mentioned it to me
Yeah.
before.
There's a picture of her with Crone from that day too. He was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
She was young, very young.
that was the next day, because the next day she wore her other favorite pink outfit, pink sweater.
Yeah, the picture
So,
of Crone, she's not in the gi.
2 days? One day was the gi, and she knows some of the signatures, but I know Eddie signed it,
Which is
and
ironic, of course. Yeah.
who else signed it?
The Machado brothers. There's a lot of people signed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a cute story, jiu-jitsu wise, and it's a pretty unique one. She was at that time. What year was that? 2004.
Yeah, she was about 8, maybe 9.
And she was literally like one of the only little girls doing jiu-jitsu at that time. We could almost probably count them on one hand during those years out in California. And I know there were little girls around the world doing some jiu-jitsu, but it was not what it is now. That's for sure. So it's a fun memory.
Oh, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Were you there that day? Were you at that ADCC?
Yeah, I was. It's a Long Beach, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Did you compete at that one that year?
I was pulled out of the crowd. Someone got injured, and they put me there out of nowhere. Yeah, someone got injured on the warm up, and then I was like 80 kilograms. They put me on the 99. I almost got the guy's arm, but then I lost in the end. I wasn't prepared, but I tried.
That's so crazy. Wow. Yeah, man, that day, I remember it so well. It's really funny because you see the pictures, and like there's one day where I'm like in my little gi, and then the next day I'm there in like this pink outfit with like a pink jacket, and like a pink skirt, and it's like me and Crone with my pink outfit, and I have the blue gi. And I remember trying to wear that blue gi to train after that because I wanted like everybody to see all my signatures on it. But then I stopped wearing it to train, I think, because I didn't want to ruin it. But it has a lot of signatures all over it. I have to find it to see them, but it has like Kira's signature and Eddie Bravo and the Machado brothers, and man, a lot of people in there. So that was the start of it, though. I knew that. I don't remember if Gabby Garcia was there that one or not, because I don't remember exactly what year it was. But that was the start. Like watching those tournaments, I just knew, like I was like, I'm gonna be there one day. That's gonna be me. I'm gonna be winning that one day. So it's really interesting to look back. Like things have really come full circle. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm fighting like the ADCC champions, and I'm hopefully gonna be in ADCC next year. So very exciting. That's funny memory.
I have no doubt you're gonna be in ADCC next year, man. It makes me want to go as well, man. Maybe the last one. I was supposed to be 40 this year, but I'm not gonna be 40 anymore this year. I'm gonna be 39 for one more year, and I'll celebrate on next year, so I can celebrate that. Maybe we celebrate in the ADCC. Who knows?
I love it. Yeah, you got to celebrate in Vegas since it's gonna be in Vegas this year.
Okay, so our last one.
All right, a couple stories about Kendall. One of the ones I remember a lot when she was young. I don't know, she was probably 8 or 9 years old. We were living out in Duluth on 14 acres, and she had read a book or watched a movie or something about buried treasure, and she came and asked me if it was possible that there was buried treasure on our property out there in Duluth. And I was like, I kind of hesitated, and then finally I was like, okay, look, here it is. Because she was extremely inquisitive as a child. I was like, it is within the realm of possibility that there's buried treasure out here, right? It's 14 acres, whatever. But it's extremely unlikely, right? But that was enough. She like every day for like 5 or 6 days, she's out there digging holes in the yard, right? I mean, relentlessly. I'm talking about hours at a time when she's like 8 or 9 years old. So that was kind of funny. And I used to try to talk her out of it, but she anyway. So that happened, and she was pretty relentless. Like, she always wanted a horse because we live out there. There were other people with horses and sort of property. It was a barn and stuff, but there wasn't stalls and stuff, and it would have cost us a lot of money. And plus, there wasn't really trails and stuff like that. So it would have been a great investment on us. And I just thought, she was already doing jiu-jitsu, and it was just,
other things.
Yeah. So what I told her was, because it's a lot of responsibility to take care of a horse. This was the thing. So I said, well, if you can remember enough to mind me 90 days in a row that you want a horse and that you're willing to take care of it and feed it every day and clean the stalls, then I'll get you a horse, right? So finally, I was getting terrified. Finally, like on the 75th day or something like that, she finally forgot. And I actually felt guilty about not getting a horse because she remembered for so long. But now, and we're talking about, I don't know, she couldn't have been.
I think she was
7,
closer to 6.
8, maybe even younger.
Times.
Yes, she was very young. So that happened, and then what was the other one I was thinking? Oh, at Ricardo's school, there was this kid, this really obnoxious kid. He was a little bit of a sociopath. I was like, work, because he would like crank arm bars at other kids and shit. He did stuff. And very young. This was when they were very young. She was, like I said, she started when she was 5, so she was probably 7 or 8, maybe younger. And this kid, one day he decided to torment Kendall. He was like, you're a girl. And for some reason, she didn't have a problem with being a girl, but it's just the way he did it. And he was mocking her and stuff. She started crying, and because this kid he was like tormenting her. And then later on that day when they were rolling, I heard this kid scream bloody murder. And I looked over, and Kendall was getting off of this kid when they were sparring. And she caught him in Americana, of course. And she had this like guilty look on her face, like he wouldn't tap. So that was kind of funny.
That's when we won't tell our parents.
Yeah, that's
too
cool.
many times.
That's all. I could go all day. But
good ones though. Those are good ones.
You can tell he's such a big fan of you.
Oh my God, he is the biggest fan. It's awesome. That last story was true. That kid was so mean, and he wouldn't tap. I remember that day very specifically. I did Americana, and he wouldn't tap, and he was bullying me. So I don't coach my kids to do the same thing. But sometimes you have to defend yourself.
That's so cool, man. So, Kendall, that was it. We separate some good messages from people that close to you. Man, I would just say thanks so much for put your time for us here on the chat show. It's been awesome talking to you. You are so bright, such a talent, and such an amazing girl, and inspire so many. Not only girls, but everyone that are around you, and keep it up, this mindset. You're already so grown up on your way of thinking, very kind of decisive, and this shows already why the reason why you're such a champion. So like I say, thanks so much for being here with us. We all learned a lot. We all got really inspired, and I hope to see you on the mat really soon, and we're all going to be cheering for you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here. It was awesome to see all those videos. Thank you guys for all the videos that you guys sent in. That was really sweet. And thank you for everyone who's saying hello. Marcio, Paul, good to see you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. It was awesome to be here.
That's awesome. So thank you very much. And I'll see you the other side of the screen at some time. All right, guys. One more chat show to the books. Amazing conversation with Professor Kendall. Such an amazing girl, man. I've seen her growing up from since kid, and become such an amazing woman and inspiring so many of us, and such a warrior. A big example, a big role model. And I hope this actually inspire many others to get inspired, to motivate, and to kind of pass it on as well, our legacy in that way, in such a beautiful way. All right, guys. So everyone, thank you very much for watching. Okay, just to remind, tomorrow there won't be no Barra Fit class, and from now on, because everything starts easing out after the lockdown, there will be one special seminar per week with one of the legends, many of the legends of our team. Those seminars, like classes, not going to be the way that we did previously. It's going to be more specific on a subject, not necessarily of the week, but of the whoever is going to be teaching. So it's really something that's going to be keeping us on the go as well, for people who cannot still train in the academies and be able to carry on, follow up with our seminars online. All right. So other than that, I'll see you guys next week, and I'm really looking forward to see you guys back on the mats very soon. So take care, and I'll see you next time.